a Noble Media Group member.
The world is very different now, for man holds in his mortal hands the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life.
6,000 years ago, man invented the wheel. 5,000 years later, he invented the printing press. 460 years later, he would fly. 70 years later, he would step on the moon. And 8 years later, he would send a spacecraft beyond our solar system. Today, we have computers which can think for themselves and robots that can dance. Properly utilized, today's technologies can bring an end to poverty, hunger, and even the need to work, or to make bombs that will end all life on Earth. Will we destroy ourselves or come together?
It is now 85 seconds to midnight. This is the closest the world has ever been to midnight.
Join Joe Carvin as he explores these questions, because mankind is on the hinge of history.
Good afternoon, Joe. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Brian. How about yourself? Are you ready?
Fabulous.
To talk about looking at the hinge of history?
Fabulous, yes, absolutely. It's good to see you again this afternoon, by the way.
Good to see you. So today we're going to talk about the linear exponential gap. That is, we're going to discuss a concept without which it's impossible to understand today's world: exponential change. The reason is simple. Technological change is exponential in nature, but our survival mindset that's been developed over hundreds of thousands of years on the savannas of Africa is basically a linear mindset, and that's how we generally approach the world today. Indeed, many argue that there's hard to find a more profound illustration of the human hardware problem facing us today, called the linear exponential gap. It's a gap that's arguably the most critical cognitive challenge of our time, because our global systems, education, governance, and economics, are almost entirely built on linear foundations. So, Brian, we've got a terrific video from Peter Diamandis. Love you to tee up that first video, if you would.
We'll do it right now.
Thank you.
To reinvent the curriculum that's going to sort of make it relevant for my kids, for your kids, and for the kids that we have that we're teaching. So here's the first point. We evolved as humans back hundreds of thousands and millions of years ago, back when a world was local and linear. Everything that affected you back then on the savannas of Africa was within a day's walk. The world didn't change millennium to millennium or century to century. Nothing changed. The life of your great-grandparents, you, your kids, their kids, was the same. But today, the world is anything but that, right? Today, the world is global and exponential. Something happens in China or India, you know about it seconds later. Computers know about it microseconds later. Things aren't changing century to century or decade to decade. They are changing year to year. And if I were to graph that, it looks like this. That red line is all of us. It's our teachers, our students, our friends, our board members, our politicians. We haven't had a hardware or software upgrade in 50 million years. It's been a while, right? That yellow line is the technology that we're creating. Artificial intelligence, robotics, synthetic biology, computers, networks, sensors, 3D printers. All of these technologies are doubling in power year to year to year. And the difference between these two lines, between us sort of linear thinking humans not really changing in our biology very much, and this growing technology, is either disruptive stress or disruptive opportunity. And another way that I look at it is the following. Historically, the earliest schools didn't have to change the curriculum that much, right? Because the curriculum over 50 years, 100 years was pretty much basic. Math and reading and writing and so forth. But today, as the technology is growing at such a rapid rate, our responsibility to constantly reinvent and be on the cutting edge for relevance for our students is higher than ever before.
Well, that was interesting, Joe. Give me your take on it, because it's a little mind-boggling to me that we view things from a linear perspective, but versus where we're at right now as a civilization and mankind.
Yeah, well, what's really really clear, Brian, is that technological change is exponential in nature, and we'll talk a lot more about this in the rest of this podcast. But that's the fundamental concept to understand. So, as Diamandis points out in his graph, ultimately that creates either stress or opportunity, and it creates a real educational challenge. And that's what we're trying to overcome in these podcasts. So basically, the hardwiring he talks about is an impediment to understanding today's world. But I think to understand the dimensions of the problem, we need to listen to his second video where he talks about dramatic differences between exponential and linear. So if you go so kind to show that second video, we'll really get a sense of how dramatic the difference is.
Good. I'll do it right now. Let's listen
Thank
to
you.
it.
Exponential
Thanks.
growth feel like to you? Exponential feel like? What does exponential growth feel like to you? Remember, I said we are local and linear thinkers, and we don't think globally and exponentially as much as we might want to or believe that we do. So at Singularity University, where I'm very proud to be co-founder and executive chairman, co-founder with Ray Kurzweil, we bring in the world leaders together to come and learn about exponential technologies. And I hope that all of you in Abundance Digital will participate in the SU universe. Come to one of our exponential conferences, go to our Global Solutions program, come to our executive programs. It really is an on-ramp to the Singularity University world. So let's talk about exponentials. Now, I said, first of all, that we are linear thinkers. We all know that in 30 linear steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in 30 steps, I'm 30 meters away. If I've gone out my front door, I'm now across the street. And that ability to count linearly and to make a linear extrapolation is really intuitive. I mean, I can ask you, think about this wherever you're right now, say, where are you going to be in 5 steps? And you can point and do the experiment, and you'll be damn close to when you get there, when you pace it out. Or even in 20 steps, where will you be? Your brain extrapolates extremely well in a linear fashion. But if I said to you, where are you going to be in 30 exponential steps, where an exponential is a simple doubling, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and I said, where are you going to be in 30 doublings? If you take 30 paces here, in 30 doublings, you're not 30 meters away. In 30 doublings, you're 1 billion meters away. Put differently, you've gone around the planet 26 times. That difference between 30 meters and 26 orbits of planet Earth is decimating to a Fortune 500 company that misses an exponential. And it's extraordinary to a startup like yourself who gets on top of and starts riding an exponential growth curve. What does exponential growth feel like to you?
Well, that was interesting. So, and I also found it kind of interesting that how he pointed out that if you miss one digit or one exponential, and he was mentioning it to S&P 500 companies or whatever, but
Yep.
if you miss just one, the massive amount of difference that makes.
Oh, and there's some great examples. Kodak.
Oh,
Kodak
yeah.
technology. Another one is, what's the video store that used to be a Blockbuster?
Right.
Blockbuster's another one. Blockbuster, Netflix offered to sell themselves to Blockbuster for $50 million. So yeah, but what do you think? So ultimately for me, Brian, this is the defining challenge of our day, the defining societal and educational challenge. How do you compare going around the earth 26 times with 30 steps where you go from the front of your sailboat to the back of your sailboat?
Right.
How do you get even conceptualize that? What do you think?
I don't. I think we all would have a problem really conceptualizing it. And listen, I was a chemistry major, so chemistry is 90% math, and so I do understand the power of exponentials. But I still think it's difficult for us to truly comprehend how quickly those can change. And one of the things when I watch this that points out to me is that you could be 4 steps into a 30-step exponential curve, And if you're comparing it to the same linear curve, there's not that much difference. But once you're in the fifth step or the sixth or seventh step, the difference is outstanding. It is substantial. And I think that's kind of where you're going with some of this today is where are we at in that curve? Because it's no longer a linear curve. Is that correct?
Exactly, exactly. And that's exactly what I want to get to. But before we get to, I've given this talk, the talk that Diamandis gave 1,000 times. And I always have difficulty. So I'm preparing for today's podcast. I said, let me try and understand why even I have difficulty right after sharing this. And so I went to my AI and it came up with three answers. One is our evolutionary hardwiring, right? For nearly all of human history, our survival depended on linear and local thinking. If you saw a predator coming towards you, you estimated the speed linearly, right? If you gathered food, that was an additive process.
Right.
There was no evolutionary advantage to calculating exponential growth in the Stone Age hunter-gatherer environment. So that's one answer. The second answer is the one you just talked about, and that is the slow start deception. So again, what he talked about was 30 doublings, right?
Right.
But let me give you a little bit of an example. So after 10 doublings, right, you get to 1,024. And if you're going to go 30 paces, you're less than 1%, less than 1/10 of 1% along the way. After 20 doublings, you get to 1,000,000. You're only 1/10 of 1% along the way. So as you say, the linear and exponential graphs haven't parted ways yet. After 25 doublings, you're 3%. You're just beginning to see the change. And then, of course, 96.9% of the change takes place in the last 5 steps. And that's where I think we are near the curve. I'd love to give you one more example because my finance students love this example. Can I give you one more example of exponential? All right, so Brian, I'm going to guarantee to give you $4 million at the end of 30 days or a penny doubling. Which would you rather have?
Well, again, knowing exponentials, and you'd have to think about this. My initial gut reaction is I'll take the 4 million, but that I don't think that's how it's going to come out to make the most money.
Right. Well, I'll tell you how it comes out, and then I'll tell you how I do this both ways. But Brian, at the end of 10 days, you've only got $10.24. You want to change your mind if you take the penny doubling.
Right.
After 15 days, you got 163. After 25,200, last chance. And ultimately, as you suggest, you get to $5.368 million.
Right.
So the penny doubling. Now, sometimes since people think, okay, he's giving me this, sometimes I say 6 million and they get it wrong, right? Because no one knows exactly what number you're going to end up with. But the important point again, 96.9% of the change takes place in the last five turns. And I have a couple of real world examples if I could share with you.
Yeah.
One is my favorite futurist, Ray Kurzweil. He talks about the Human Genome Project, right? It was a $2.7 billion enterprise.
Yeah.
7 years into it, this is what he said. 7.5 years into the Human Genome Project, scientists announced that they had decided only 1% of our genetic code. The project was budgeted for 15 years. Skeptics said it wouldn't work. It would take a century to complete. He said after 7 years, so basically what he said, no, there was compounding, doubling. So in another 7 years, they made it because he could see this is the mindset. If we're going to understand today's world, we need a fundamental mindset change. We need to think about exponentials and how exponential change is transforming our world.
Yeah, and incidentally, though, I was actually in pharma when some of that was happening, and I was watching that, and I would have thought exactly the same thing. I don't know how they're going to finish that. So
right?
I'm guilty of it too. And
of course, no, everybody look.
Yeah.
That again, there's hundreds of thousands of years with this linear mindset. And then I have one final example, then we can get into the conversation. Have you heard of Moore's Law? We've talked a little bit about it in the past.
Yeah, explain what that is.
Right. So Moore's Law, Gordon Moore was the CEO of Intel in 1965. And he said that he anticipated that computing capacity would double every 2 years at the same price. as luck would have it, it did happen. In fact, that's why I have more computing capacity in my phone than the rocket ship that went to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, to commemorate 50 years of Moore's Law, the CEO of Intel in 2015 did a little analysis. And basically, he said, I guess his name was Brian Kastnick. And basically, what he said, if a Volkswagen Beetle, had improved as much as the microprocessors have since 1971, you'd be able to run a car that goes 300,000 miles an hour, gets 2 million miles to the gallon, and costs 4 cents. What do you think, Brian? Would you like to buy a car that costs 4 cents?
Yeah, right. Isn't that incredible?
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Again, and looking back at the Human Genome Project, we've gone from $2.7 billion, right, to sequence the human genome, to $100 to $200. Imagine the fundamental impact on health across the planet,
Hmm.
which is happening in today's world, and ultimately, so these are the things that we're talking about now. If we look at Moore's Law, and we've been having trouble keeping up with Moore's Law. Moore's Law doubled every 2 years. So over a decade with compounded, you had a 32-fold increase. Okay. AI compute is doubling every 6 months these days.
Oh my gosh.
Take that out over 10 years since your exponentials, it's a million-fold increase. Are we ready for that million-fold increase, Brian?
That's actually a really good question that could probably take up an entire show or two, right?
Oh,
Um,
100%.
yeah. So are we ready? That I can't answer, but that's the reality that's happening right now.
And again, so we're talking about sustainable superabundance, right? We just talked about the Human Genome Project. One of my favorite futurists and AI entrepreneurs is Demis Hassabis.
Hmm.
We talked about him in the past from Google DeepMind. And ultimately, he's using Google DeepMind really as a scientific endeavor. And he's doing it differently than IBM when they beat the chess champion. His AlphaGo and then alpha protein folding teaches itself.
Hmm.
Okay, so they basically the big had a big contest several years ago where they challenged the top Go player of the world to compete with their computer AlphaGo.
Hmm.
And ultimately, the whole of Asia was watching. This is a game that's been around for 5,000 years. Go. It's multiple times more complex than chess. So you
Hmm.
can't hardwire it. You have to play and learn how to play. So they were playing against the Go champion of all time. And they got into the third game or second or third game. And AlphaGo, the computer did what they call move 37. Move 37 was completely innovative. In the 5,000 years ago, nobody had ever done move 37.
Hmm.
So immediately all the commentators say, "Oh, the computer made a mistake. The computer made a mistake. The computer made a mistake." It turned out to be pure genius,
Oh wow.
completely new. And this is again the potential. But what I like about Demis Hassabis, he didn't leave it there. He took that same technology and applied it to protein folding. No, again, you're a biology guy. Protein folding, from what I understand, has been incredibly complex and difficult. So in the previous 60 years, we've been able to protein fold 170,000 proteins. It'd take a PhD 5 years on his own to do it, something like that. So he applied the same technology to protein folding. He won a Nobel Prize for it in chemistry. And we've since protein folded 2 million proteins. So that's
Exponential growth.
This is the positive exponential growth. So ultimately, he's folded 2 million proteins, and he's on 60 Minutes talking about the end of disease
Hmm.
and bringing an end disease in the next 10 to 20 years. I believe it can happen. Well, I don't know. He says it can happen because what he's done, first of all, he gave protein folding to the world. Didn't try and make money on it. He gave it to the world. He opened it up, open source, showed everybody how to do protein. And he's got a new company where they're trying to use the technology to replicate the same kinds of health advances in protein folding. Now, we're going to talk next week about the singularity. Google just had its foothills of the singularity conference. And we're at the foothills of the singularity. You may remember Ray Kurzweil predicted the singularity in 2045. That's it's a point in time beyond what you can't see. It's like a black hole, right? It's a horizon beyond what you can't see because technological change is going so quickly. Ultimately, I think that's where we're headed, and we probably only have a few years left to adjust and get ready for exponential change.
So what you're saying is that at the conference, it was at Google that was predicting or announcing that we may very well be at the cusp of that exponential growth into singularity. And singularity, as I understand what you just explained, is the point to where everything increases so quickly and so fast. It's wouldn't it be a combination of our ability to understand it, but it's so fast that we can't even see beyond it of what's going to happen in the next day or the next year or the next decade. Is that correct?
Exactly. We're really, again, there's a book by Emmett Millstock. He talks about 1,000 days. So really, and talking about the conference. So Demis Hassabis, again, I love. Now we were talking a little bit before. I'm going to take my glasses off for this one.
Okay.
Because I keep wanting to say to the AI community, how can you be so obtuse? That's a line from Shawshank Redemption.
Right.
But basically, they're trying to define AGI. Let's be clear. Your generative AI, your LLM, and my are gazillion times smarter than us, right? Infinite knowledge in the traditional sense of the word smart. The difference being is it needs our prompt. It needs our prompt before they can generate their intelligence.
And explain what AGI is again.
So AGI, again, there's all the artificial general intelligence, which is going to be artificial super intelligence. But just take Joe Corvin's definition.
Okay.
Because when it's as smart as a human. Well, they're far smarter than humans. So that's a stupid definition in my view. It's when it becomes autonomous. When it becomes autonomous, becomes an agent on its own. That's the big change, because then we lose control. So we have a few years before it's autonomous. That's the number one thing you need to understand. AGI. So Demis Hassabis has always had the strictest definition of AGI. Some people say we're already there. For my definition and Ray Kurzweil's definition and Demis's, it has to be more autonomous. It has to come up with the Einstein theory of relativity on its own, not prompted. So unprompted intelligence. And Demis has always been the most conservative. He said 5 to 10 years, 50% probability. So at the foothills of the singularity, he accelerated. If you've got Demis Hassabis saying, I can see it in the next few years, you know it's the next few years because he's been the most conservative. And plus, he's seen it. And again, one thing we're going to talk in the future about is the stock market as the best. You have no better seat to this whole new industry being built in the stock market. So basically, what happened this week? Anthropic filed for an IPO. SpaceX is about to do its IPO. OpenAI is good about doing it. And then what did Google do? Google said, hey, you know what? I'm already listed. I'll raise another $85 billion. Why not? The largest raise in history. Google has taken its CapEx investment from 30, 40, 50 billion to 190. They're all in, baby. All in. And this new AI future, we'll talk again some more about this next week, about basically the AI factories of the future are being built. And again, the reason the stock market is such a great place to see this is because it's a treasure trove of information. We'll read from Elon's prospectus on SpaceX, but you know the number one reason he's doing this? You'll never guess. Well, he wants to make more money. Baloney. His number one goal is to save humanity. Mm-hmm. His number one goal is to prevent existential risk. He's talked about it for decades.
Yes, he has.
His number one goal, and it's his first paragraph in the prospectus. We want to keep this dim candle of light consciousness, the only known consciousness 93 billion light years across. We want to keep it alive. That's the goal of the Hinge of History. That's the goal of this podcast, Brian. And I'm confident that we can hopefully tip the balance in the right direction.
Well, if
And
not, we're at least going to be able to educate a lot of people on it because, I mean, this is where we're at. This is the future. You know, it's whether you want to read about it or learn about it, you're going to be a part of it regardless, right?
well,
So,
this is the thing. And I know we're closing soon, but one of the things we'll talk about in coming lessons is it's just starting to become political, this conversation, which is hugely unfortunate. You know, you're a political show. We're
Yeah.
rigorously political. But I'm going to be honest, it's the height of stupidity for the students at Arizona to boo Eric Schmidt when he gives the commencement speech. That's like booing Al Gore on climate change.
and
No one has been more constructive about trying to bring AI in a way constructive that advances our global community. No one more than Eric Schmidt. So if you want to, if Al Gore brings up climate change and talks about climate change, why would you boo him?
yeah.
Same with Eric Schmidt. And
Explain who Eric Schmidt is again, too, please.
Eric Schmidt is the former president of Google, CEO of Google.
Okay.
I love what he's doing. He wrote a book with Kissinger. They went to China trying to find out ways to bring China and the United States together on AI. He's a brilliant human being, and ultimately understands AI and really working hard to try and bring it in an intelligent fashion. People think I'm an optimist. I'm a weatherman. I'm not an optimist. And I'm insistent we have a conversation. I think the Pope getting involved in the conversation, as we saw last week, is essential. In fact, you know, ultimately, and maybe we'll close with this, there was, I think, a Jewish philosopher, Maimonides, talked about, imagine there's an equal amount of good and evil in the world, and your next act is going to tip the balance. We have 8.3 billion co-creators in the universe today. Each of us is involved. Those of us alive today are going to determine whether we succeed or fail. No one can hide in this. Or you can hide in the sand if you want, but this is our decision. And so our goal, as you know, Brian, is to bring as much information as we can to have an intelligent conversation. There's huge challenges in front of us, but I'm not going to stick my head in the sand.
Absolutely. Well, it's going to be interesting, and looking forward to the next many shows because some of this stuff, I mean, a lot of the things that you brought up today, we could spend an entire week talking about, you know. So I'm looking forward to this. I know we're out of time. Everybody, if you're watching this right now, you're watching it on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. It doesn't cost you anything. It'll give you the opportunity to watch The Hinge of History, which you're watching right now. If you want to watch our equivalent of 60 minutes, then you could watch Restoring the American Dream. If you're interested more in politics and cutting day politics, you can watch The Political Arena. You know, we've got a lot of different programs that we're trying to put together as part of this group to give you a variety of things to watch. Obviously, The Hinge of History is not a political program at all. Some of the others are. So please, if you've got a moment, press the subscribe button, leave a question. I know Joe and I would love to read the questions online, and then we'll talk about it even during our live broadcast. So please do that. Joe, thank you again for the time, and we will see everybody again. What is today? I guess the next Monday. So thanks, Joe. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and we will see you again next Monday.
You've been watching Joe Carvin's Hinge of History. The No Bull Media Group is available on all major social media platforms. Make sure to give us a follow where you can watch this show and many others.
A No Bull Media